It feels like politicians like them are now the ones spreading the politics of division and hatred, and they're being exposed for it.
That's exactly right. Trudeau and Ardern came to office and have governed to the extent that they have governed in office by pretending to be as filled with empathy as it's possible to be. Ardern's face positively crumples up with empathy. Trudeau uses this fake means of communication to talk about how empathetic he is. By the way, as I say in the column, it's a total crock in politics. There is no evidence at all that being filled with empathy means that you are competent to run a country or to make the decisions that are necessary to govern a country wisely. And it's perfectly clear that Justin Trudeau in particular not only doesn't have any competency to govern, but doesn't actually have the empathy that he came to office boasting about having. It's perfectly clear that Justin Trudeau has no empathy for the truckers and the others in his country who disagree with his policies. He is trying to freeze them out of Ottawa. He is ordering police to steal their gasoline, to steal their wood. He ordered GoFundMe to seize the funds that was sent to the truckers. He's now ordered the banks in Canada to freeze the accounts of truckers and people supporting the truckers. This is a gross overreach by any political leader. And he's ordering the police, and he may in due course order the army to get the truckers out. I would just say in these situations, it is the duty of those police and those members of the armed forces to, if not shirk their duty, then perhaps do what Justin himself did when this crisis began, and pretend that they met someone who once danced with someone who had COVID, and perhaps they could go into isolation until the demands, the absolutely totalitarian demands of Justin Trudeau on the armed forces of his country cease.
Well, Douglas, what's so fascinating to me, right, because you know very often I deplore social media networks and how miserable it's made us. But you've got Ardern and Trudeau following the same playbook of saying these are all right-wing extremists, they're Nazis, they're white supremacists. Well, we can see for ourselves, Douglas, on all of these live feeds from around the world, and especially in Canada and New Zealand, that the protesters are nothing of the sort. And I saw a great video from Canada earlier today of the Freedom Convoy protesters embracing the police, singing the national anthem with the police. Yes. So I think, actually, Douglas, they are starting to shirk their responsibilities a little bit, and are not prepared to follow the madness from Trudeau.
Absolutely. Trudeau should fall. His government should fall over this. And I think that if he continues to overreach like this, it will fall. He will be out of office. He has got himself into a corner because he has portrayed the public as his enemies. Now, of course, he has some supporters among the Canadian people still. But once you start to pretend that all of your opponents and critics are Nazis and racists and misogynists, as he has repeatedly said, then you can't deal with them, can you? In fact, you can't even live in the same country as them, can you? And so you start by seizing their bank accounts, stealing their money, stealing their wood, freezing them out, making life impossible for them. Where does he go next? Very hard to see in a democracy. So I think little Justin has just got, potentially, to the beginning of the end of his reign of incompetency.
I hope so. But Douglas, he's acting like a COVID dictator. How can a virus with a 99% survival rate, and improving, by the way, thanks to Omicron, how can a virus like that morph leaders into these weird sort of authoritarians?
Because as with Ardern in New Zealand, when you've gone this far, you have to keep going. They cannot admit the mistake. They cannot admit the appalling cost of the policies that they continue to try to implement. And so they have to keep going right up until the end. Now, we'll see. Last week, Ardern instituted new restrictions in New Zealand, just as the rest of the world was basically getting out of all restrictions. But it's Trudeau that is the one to watch on this. It is the people propping him up in power who we should keep an eye on. They are using completely totalitarian methods against their own citizens. And by the way, it was quite right that Marcus Fish, the Conservative MP today, called on the British Foreign Secretary to intervene. I think all democratic governments at this point should start to ask questions of their Canadian counterparts and ask what exactly is happening to the citizenry of Canada, who do deserve freedom, deserve the right to protest, and do deserve a better leader than they have in this ridiculous, empathetic, and inept poster boy, Justin Trudeau.